All right, I'd like to call to order this planning and zoning meeting for May 23rd. The time is 6 p.m. Miranda, can I get a roll call vote?
Commission Member Mormon.
Here.
Ritchie. Ferris.
Here.
Hardeman. Here. Soldwich.
Here.
Decker.
Here.
Ormsby.
All right, agenda item 3A, agenda approval for the May 23rd agenda. Someone like to make a motion?
Motion.
1 second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item 4A, approval of the May 9th meeting minutes. Everyone has had time to review those. Would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, any, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, item 5, public comment. This would be for any item that is not on the agenda. Do I have anyone here with any comments or concerns not listed on the agenda? Okay, item 6A for old business, we have consider recommendation on request for approval of a plat of survey on behalf of Blake Reynolds for the property identified as parcel number 140-0023-0640.
Oh, then 1 second on PowerPoint. So this is a plat of survey application submitted by Chad Daniels on the behalf of Blake Reynolds and Yoder Family Revocable Trust. The subject property is currently vacant. It's for row crop production. We actually first heard this application on May 9th. Where Planning and Zoning Commission had referred it back to staff for additional information on county zoning requirements, and then also for the lot regulations that could be placed on a plat of survey. But just to recap, so the proposed split would create parcel D, 5-acre parcel. And the purpose of the sale would be for future business expansion and sale. So this shows the proposed split. Again, it's going to be that parcel D, that 5 acres right here. And that shows generally in this location where that split would occur. The future land use map does show the area being low density residential. Which would be this yellow area, and then this red area is that neighborhood mixed. So to recap county zoning requirements, so staff did speak with the county planning and zoning department just in regards to what's allowable from a county perspective. So overviewing those, the parcel of ground that's to the west is currently zoned for the C2 General Commercial Highway Service District, which allows for automotive uses, equipment services, camping grounds, vehicle and mobile sales, lots, et cetera. A lot of those highway commercial type uses. In our discussion with the county planning department, they had determined that maybe more zoning classification for the area would be the CA zoning district. This is the commercial agricultural zoning district, which allows for agricultural buildings, commercial feedlots, agricultural feed and sales, ag equipment repair services, as well as storage and repair facilities for custom hire. Also in that correspondence, the department did indicate that they haven't had correspondence with the applicants regarding the future use of the site. So when we had those initial conversations, they weren't aware of this division, but then also future rezoning of the site. Staff is still recommending denial of the split. So we don't have all of the information that Planning and Zoning Commission had requested.
Yeah, no, and we didn't at the time of the report. So Emily was working to get the allowable uses. The one thing I was doing was working with our legal counsel on what we could do to essentially restrict any building on the new parcel. In talking with legal counsel, they said, you know, we could request that a note be placed on the plat of survey, essentially saying that it was not buildable. But again, from a zoning perspective, and I think we explained this last time, we don't have zoning control over the property, the county does. So in communications with the county on if a note was placed on the plat, you know, how they would react to that. And all, essentially they indicated kind of they take that stuff on a case by case basis, and I'll just read verbatim. The email I got back and says the county would have to work through our review process, and we would take into consideration notes from the city and consult with our legal counsel at the time. So kind of a broad answer on that. But you know, to me, it's more of a case by case basis depending on what's going on. And it's really difficult to say, I guess, how the county would enforce such a thing. So, you know, the only other thing we talked, you know, deed restrictions and stuff like that, that's really hard to go through and track. And that's something typically property owners enforce privately. It's not something that the city typically enforces on deed restrictions. So, you know, our perspective, if it remains out in the county from a zoning perspective, we're just still unsure what control the city has over it, because again, the county has full zoning authority outside of the city limits.
Do I have anyone in the audience that's here to speak on this item? Just state your name and address, please.
Both Reynolds. I guess my question would be is why does the city A need control? And B, how are you planning, if the property is not going to be for sale or development? Why does this matter? I'd like to hear from the city and the staff as to why you are recommending for denial. Why do you need control over that 5 acres?
State gives us control. They give us that 2-mile extraterritorial subdivision review authority, and it's so the city can grow appropriately into the unincorporated area when we're at that point in time.
You have a 400 acres that's developing out in northeast of town, which last time you told us that northeast of town was not a growth potential area. We've also got 120 acres directly across the road from me that's not being developed. You've got all these other areas. So if this isn't going to be developed for, I mean, that area has been talked about being developed for all of my lifetime.
Yeah,
And if that, it may not ever be developed in my lifetime. So are you going to hold back progress and a tax base for the rest of the community and jobs just because you want to have control over this?
so again,
Seems really petty.
when we review our subdivision ordinance, we have to review it against our comp plan. Our comp plan shows this as a future residential area in a high growth priority area. So we're just reviewing it off the document that the council.
So you cannot make any exceptions to any rule is what you're telling me.
No, I mean, those exceptions can be made, but from our standpoint, again, when we make our professional recommendation on this, it is based off the comp plan.
And who developed the comp plan?
That was developed by the public, the Planning and Zoning Commission had input on it, and the city council.
So you went acre by acre and looked at elevation maps, you looked at topography, you were very well educated on that area when you made that decision on that entire piece. You can honestly say you were 100% educated on that particular area. That plan was developed.
The general area looked at ability to service it from a sanitary sewer standpoint, from a water standpoint. It did look at ground that was undevelopable at a certain contour. So depending on what the slopes were on the grounds, they did take into consideration those types of areas.
How
So
long ago was that?
this was done in 2020.
So you had public comment during COVID.
Yes. And before COVID, actually, it was adopted in May of 2020. So most of the public feedback that we got was before COVID.
Thanks.
Do you have anyone else that would like to speak on this item?
I never got, my name is Jim Yoder and I'm representing the Yoder Family Trust. During this time of public comment, I was never informed that it was even happening. And I'm a landowner. Could have been at least.
Of the meeting you're talking about?
Of the public input.
Did you get notification of the first meeting?
He's talking about the comp plan.
Oh. Talking about the comp plan.
Yeah.
I never got any
We didn't, I mean, yeah, for the comprehensive plan, I mean, that affects the entire city and all the 2 mile area. We didn't send out individual letters to everybody regarding that. But there was a published notice of public hearing for that comp plan before its adoption. And I think from the city standpoint, we use probably every method possible to get the information out there, so.
I guess I'm gonna still, I don't think anybody here has been out to look at Blake's operation. I have. It probably affects my property more than anybody else. And I know what he's gonna do with the property. He basically is going to probably farm a little bit of it. Because he's gonna farm my property too. And maybe put another storage building on it or something like that, but it's a clean operation. I mean, it's not a lot of storage for chemicals and that type of stuff. I mean, it's basically equipment, working on equipment. He wants to get it all under roof so that it isn't sitting outside. The building that he's building right now is big enough for a couple semis and a number of different large pieces of agriculture equipment. He's the kind of neighbor that I like. I mean, he's somebody that is easy to work with. He didn't want to do anything to upset me. We've always had good borders. I just don't quite understand why. I just don't understand why you're denying it. I think it's short-sighted because you've got all this area that you're putting in for housing. And I don't see any real growth in the areas of commercial or industrial. And without the jobs, I just don't see your community growing that fast. Oh,
Sir, I have a couple questions for you. I was not at the May 9th meeting, so I don't know what the conversations were then, so I apologize. But I think just hearing what you're saying, which is very heartfelt and very helpful in advocating for, I guess, first of all, the city hasn't denied it. They've recommended it be denied, but it's for us to hear it and then give a recommendation to the council. But I think the responsibility that we have is we can't make decisions based on liking someone and thinking they're a good neighbor. We have to look at like the tools that we're given, and it's helpful.
I'm going to interrupt you. One of the things that I found out was that if I sell him the whole section, he can do anything he wants with it.
Hmm.
One of the reasons I wasn't considering that was because of the laws, the federal laws, as far as taxation. I don't really want to pay a large amount of federal income taxes that's going to affect all kinds of different things. But on the other hand, I guess I could sell it to him on a contract basis over a 10-year period. And then he'll be able to keep it agriculture. See, he just assumed have that as agricultural land, but the county won't let him do that because it's less than 20 acres and it's a partial. So he can't do that, but he could keep it all agriculture if he bought the whole property. Or he could zone it C2 if he wanted to. Okay, that's all I've got.
Was there someone else that wanted to? Can I just state your name and address, please?
Yeah, Jim Lundsley, 2402 West Anderson. I just really have one question. much influence as neighbors do we have on the decision if it gets approved? Is it just our input, or if I was to say, no, I don't want you to do this, does that stop it from happening?
I think we take everyone's comments and concerns into consideration as a whole and kind of view it, plus the recommendation from the city to kind of base our decision off of that.
I mean, based on what I've heard, I mean, people, they say, and they're saying that they just want to leave it kind of as is, he just wants to expand. But if this goes through, there's not really anything then in place to prevent him from changing his mind. Because I mean, there was lots of conversation last time of, well, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought I would have done doing this. Well, what's to say 10 years from now, they've changed their mind and they've gone decided to do something completely different with that land than plans. But that's kind of my concern. And I just want to know how much of an input I have as the.
From my perspective, having been on the commission for 7 years, something like that, I think it's helpful because there's things that a neighbor has to say that gives us a point of view that we wouldn't have had as a citizen or a commission member, that sort of thing. So it's, if no one makes any sort of commentary, then we assume that no one has an objection to it, so that there's nothing to consider in that way versus when someone does. But if that helps at all.
I guess I'm not exactly sure where I stand. I'm a little concerned with, not necessarily now. Sounds like the intention now is mostly applicable, but concerned about that future, and that's, I guess, what I'm providing here. Just knowing, because that's in my backyard type thing. So.
Well, that's one of the things we try to consider is we're planning and zoning. Okay, and part of it is planning for future. Now, the state legislature created this law that gives cities the authority to review plats in a 2-mile radius. I have to believe they probably did that, recognizing that cities tend to grow and they should have some input into that area where they could potentially grow into. The comprehensive plan was about identifying the highest and lowest and medium priority areas where the city may grow. And so that's kind of the world we're working in here. We try, I think we're all very conscientious in trying to weigh everybody's thoughts, everybody's rights, and everybody's concerns. One of the reasons at the last meeting, I asked about what the county zoning would allow, because I didn't know, but it's extensive. C2 zoning in the county, you can do a lot of things. And so that's another thing we must consider is, it's his intention is one thing, but once you zone it, it gets zoned C2. You can do other things with it. Okay. And so we have to take that into consideration also. That's where we are. And we listen to you. We may not always agree with you or do what you want, but we do listen to you and try to evaluate what you're telling us.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Did I have anyone else in the audience here to speak on this item? Anyone on the commission that has questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I want to make sure I understand a little better since I did miss the background from the initial meeting. So I apologize about that, but I wouldn't feel comfortable making any sort of decision not knowing that. So could you start from the beginning, Charlie? Could we start all over? No.
I missed the last meeting too, so I
Okay.
appreciate you asking
Yes.
that because I'm in the same.
do you just want a summary of the request in general or what?
I see what the request is, but I don't know what the background is of why, what our decision is based on.
And the discussion from
Exactly.
the last meeting that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't repeat everything verbatim, but so essentially they're requesting to split about a 5-acre parcel behind the existing parcel. There was a new building that is being built or is going to be built. I don't remember exactly. And my understanding is the county had a requirement for some sort of buffer that needed to be put in there. So they needed some extra ground. They originally only needed a little bit of a strip of ground. But just in discussion between the current business owner and the property owner that is dividing the ground, they thought that this size of parcel would be better just because, you know, generally, and if you look at this just with some of the things around there, there's a lot of wetland back there. There's just some limitations on it. It was just better to get rid of that whole piece. So that I think explains the request. And if you want to ask the applicant to just clarify anything that I may have missed there, that might be a good opportunity to do that too. You know, from our standpoint, we look at it as there's an existing commercial, nearly industrial type business out in this area. The county did permit it, obviously, so it's a permitted use. If this was ever annexed inside the city at that point, we would have to look at it from a zoning perspective. Everything that's ever brought in through an annexation goes right to an A1 zoning district. So we'd have to look at, you know, what we want to zone this property as. Knowing that it is a future residential area, and you can see that on the map here, you know, having a commercially zoned piece or commercial use in the middle of a residential area doesn't really jive with our future plans for the area. So that's one of those things where we have to balance what the comp plan says against the request, and the comp plan doesn't really guide for an expansion of this type of use. So that is where our denial recommendation is coming from.
Is there any possibility of combining the parcels once it's platted?
Yeah, I think that definitely is the case.
Is that
So-
something that would be a protection or?
Well, not necessarily, because again, and I think some of the concern from the commission and I know there's 2 of them that were there, but I think some of the concern was, you know, just increasing that commercial use and having more buildings there. Or, you know, and one thing that I always throw out anytime we're talking about stuff is, you know, you also have to balance that with, you know, this business might not be here forever. This business owner might wish to go to another location in the future, 10, 15 years from now. And then what can go there at that point on a commercially zoned piece and with the availability of buildings. So it's balancing a lot of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the combination of the 2 really wouldn't, I don't think that's going to make a big difference because again, you're still splitting it off for that commercial use.
So this piece being created is going to change the zoning of the existing piece that the.
That's something, so we don't have control over the zoning, and that's something that the county would have to work on. And I think Emily said in her presentation and discussions with the county, I believe the county, or the applicant has issued a building permit for the use, although I'm not 100% sure on that, but any talk about the split or what happens with the zoning on that has not taken place with the county. So I don't think they were too sure what would happen with it. So not too sure either.
Can I speak on that? So I would be more than happy to keep it zoned agricultural, but this county has a rule that you can't have a partial zoned agricultural less than 20 acres. Therefore, if I bought that partial, it would have to go with the existing 5 acres. And if you can pull that map up. So you can see from the, wish it was actually platted out on that map, because you'd see that there's maybe at most a half to a quarter of an acre that's tillable right now. So that'd be your only building area. Just for an example, the building that I built was right behind that existing one that's on there on the map. It's a 72 by 120 or 72 by 112. And all it does is block the view to the north, which is a scrapyard bridge builder. So what better view than to have a nice, big, beautiful building to look at if there was a housing development versus a scrapyard that's grown up in giant ragweed. So what I'm trying to do is buy 5 acres so I can tile it because there's water running on top of the ground right now. I'd like to get that dried up so I can keep it mowed and keep it cleaned, and we had to put 14 feet of fill in just to build the new building that's now complete. And the only reason why I wanted to buy more of that land is so I can taper the dirt off and keep it mowed and keep it looking nice. So without that 5 acres, it's gonna be I'm gonna spend $60,000 on a concrete wall, or I'm not gonna do anything, and it's gonna be non-mowable, and it's gonna grow up in weeds and look like garbage. And spending $60,000 on a concrete wall looks like a pretty good idea to me. That's the background and the history on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any other questions or comments on
I
this?
have just a question. So one of the things that Jim Lee, again, that's been proposed by the current owner is if you guys don't approve it, he might sell the whole land. I know in talking with Charlie several years ago about having commercial property next to residential property. I think there was something, if you were going to change it to commercial, you'd have to put up a privacy fence. Is there something similar to that? I mean, would there have to be a privacy fence?
I don't know what the county's requirements are on that, but if it was inside the city limits, we do have buffering requirement for commercial property adjacent to residential. It's just, I go back to, this is in the county and the city doesn't have zoning authority over this piece of ground.
So even though it would be commercial next to residential.
Yeah.
And inside, so.
And
this county.
and I'm only speaking, I don't know what the county's regulations say. The county might have something there that says that it has to happen, but if it was in the city, for sure, that would be a requirement. We just don't have control over it because it's not in the city. Sorry, I know you were
I
gonna.
was just gonna say, if it did, or if a residential development went in there, it would have been annexed to the city at that point.
Yep.
And then it would have to, but.
There is a note that says the future land use plan guides for continuation of Iowa Avenue through the subject parcel to create an east-west connection. I'm having trouble picturing where that would go. Can you kind of highlight that?
Yeah, so I think
Up at all. So, and
Right there.
a few things to note on this. We have done 0 alignment studies on anything out there because it's a comprehensive plan. So right now we're kind of 40,000 feet up on that plan right now. And, you know, there is a lot of limitations on this piece of ground, and there's probably a lot of engineering that needs to take place to get that through. But the thought is, and if we can, I'll just get the beacon map pulled up here. But again, the thought is that Iowa Avenue would eventually connect all the way out to,
Why isn't it?
yeah, Y Street. Well, what it's,
110th.
yeah, 110th. Well, yeah, whatever that first paved road is out there. I'm sorry, brain fart right now, but the thought is that you would have then that type of arterial road that would go from 110th Y Street all the way out to the other side of the city. So, but if you get the beacon map showed up here, you can kind of see how it would traverse through there where Iowa Avenue ends right now, but it's not necessarily going to fly straight through there. There could be some winding, meandering of it.
I just couldn't get, thank you, because I couldn't get the perspective from what we had as a static view here.
So
No, you should.
you can kind of see the zoning layers on right there too, but Iowa Avenue on kind of right to the middle to the right side ends right at the brush facility there. It shows that it goes north, but that's not the case there. It's just, now imagine that going all the way across the bottom there, and then that subdivision there just to the south, those roads that are stubbed in would connect in with that road. And again, continue through that yellow property there to the west of here as well.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Would anybody like to make a motion on this item?
No. Are they?
Well, I'll just say, I'm having a hard time kind of wrapping my brain around it because I totally understand what they're trying to accomplish and it makes sense. And yet it's like you talked about, Al, you have to balance like how it works with, it's not just for one situation. And it's not anything to do with the zoning. This is only just flat allowance. And it's completely out of our hands. And so I feel like we might be overcomplicating it by overthinking it. Because it could be platted further in the future, even if it is divided into five acres later on. And then it would be under our domain, under the city.
And again, just review quickly. If the city denies, what happens? And if the city approves, what happens?
He's going to sell it to him on a 10-year contract.
Yeah.
That you don't have any say, and I'm sure probably not gonna work with the city in the future. Would be my answer, because if you're not willing to work with me now, why would I in the future?
If you're worried about him moving,
Excuse me?
if you're worried about him moving, I wouldn't think that he'd be moving if.
No, I'm not worried about the moving. I'm worried about the multiplicity of opportunities under the county's commercial zoning. That's what makes me the most nervous, because once that's done, there's a whole laundry list of things you can build there. If, so, you know, I know you don't intend to do that, but plans change. Things change, things happen. You know,
You're just talking on that 5 acre parcel right there though, right?
well, or, yeah,
I mean,
well,
you got
yeah,
all
but
this
the whole
all
thing,
around it, it can be developed, but we're just talking about this 5 acre
right?
piece.
There's already a P, and what is the
So
zoning
you've got
of
all
the
this
piece in the
around it,
front
it
right
still
now?
could be
Well,
detailed.
it's commercial, isn't it?
So it's
Ag
already
commercial.
there.
Yeah.
It's already there, Al. Anyone could do any of those things now.
I know, you're expanding it.
Or maybe an acre.
I think for me, where I hear what you're saying, as you mentioned, it sounds like a perfectly logical, well laid out plan. For me, the consideration of what the comprehensive plan says and sort of the concept of looking at the precedent that considered going outside of that is sort of at the forefront of my mind, without very extenuating circumstances, not following the comprehensive plan that's laid out is kind of where I lie. So I want to make it clear that I agree it's a very well laid out plan. If I err on the side of following the comprehensive plan, that is why is it's a principle of that the community has decided that that's the plan.
Because we assume that they'll rezone that piece, is that, no, they will rezone it because they need to in order for him to have the building there.
I'm not sure on that. I have not clarified that at all.
Force me to be on this additional 5 acres, because it cannot be zoned agricultural for less than 20 acres.
Okay.
I guess my question would be is, you guys are building a plan, assuming that that piece of land is for sale. I'm 35 years old, and I'm gonna pull John Dutton right now and say that I am the epitome of progression. If I buy that, I can assure you it is going to stay agricultural for as long as I can possibly hold out. So it would be eminent domain taking it from me or my kids someday that aren't even born. So I just want to make that extremely clear that if I have any ability to buy that entire piece because this 5 acres is not approved, that's just where I stand on it.
I feel like we're kind of at an impasse because we're just, kind of going back and forth at this point. And it's at the point where I feel like we need to make a motion on it because we've kind of discussed both sides of it. I don't know if somebody feels stronger one way or the other to do that.
But is the motion to take a vote, or is the motion to
Vote on recommendation.
to
To vote on a recommendation. And I mean, if this is always debated and with planning and zoning commission forwarding a recommendation, I don't care one way or the other, I guess, but you know, typically emotions are always in the affirmative. So the motion would be to approve because then it's very easy to know, yes, vote means yes, I want this approved, and no vote means no, I do not want it approved, so. Also do it in the other way. You could, you know, have a motion for denial. Yes is denial, no is not on denial, but sometimes it gets easier if you do it on the approval side, so.
You're pulling in a double negative and complicating. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, we need to do something, so I'm going to recommend that we recommend to the city council that the request be approved as submitted.
I'll second that.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Bordeman,
No.
Soldwich,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Mormon,
No.
Recommended for approval, so 3-2. We will get that forward to the city council, I think June 5th is the next meeting that we'll be on, so yes, June 5th.
All right, on to item number 7A, consider recommendation on request for approval of a plat of survey for Alex Bradfield of Pell's Design Services on behalf of Robert Myers for the property addressed as 2405 West Second Avenue.
So this is Alex Bradfield, for the Robert Myers site. Computer's being a little weird. Okay, so, again, this is a plat survey submitted by Alex on behalf of Robert Myers, Deer Run Partners LLC. The subject property is a vacant parcel. The plat of survey that was proposed to create parcel F a 207 acre lot. And the split is being proposed to be developed in the future for commercial use. So again, this shows the proposed plat of survey. Parcel F is that area that would be subdivided. And this shows the proposed or the subject property as well as the future land use map. The future land use for this area does currently guide for parks and recreational use. However, the zoning is already in place for C2 highway commercial.
Can you outline parcel F on that?
On the
Where is parcel F?
future land use map.
On that thing I'm looking at.
Yellow.
With the blue line around it.
Yeah.
Go back just one slide really quick, and it's not.
Part of the yellow
Here.
box there.
So if you can see, okay, so that overland flowage easement that's down there, you can see the southwest corner of that kind of touches that. That's that pond that then if we go to the next screen, you can kind of see, so. There we go. So if you kind of inlay that on there, I don't know if we can go back and forth, but it's,
Yellow,
there you go.
the yellow on the left-hand side, is that parcel F?
That's just the general area that this is in. Yeah, I don't think it's exactly parcel F, but
Both parcels.
yeah.
I still don't know where parcel F is.
Okay, so go back. So one more. Yes. Okay, so parcel F right there, you've got that 300 by 300 square. That's on that lot 3 on there. You can kind of see the boundaries of lot 3 outside that.
Huh?
Going to the next slide. The lot 3 is what's highlighted, so
That's
that,
the blue. Lined in.
is lot 3. So that 300 by 300 is like a 300 by 300 square from that northeast corner there. So it's not that whole
Within
area.
parcels.
Yes. That makes sense?
Got it.
The IT issue figured out here really quick. And really quick, and I'll just say it while we're waiting, this parcel is designated to Parks and Rec on the comprehensive plan. One of the reasons was because before we did this subdivision, if you recall, we did that 3-lot subdivision for the Deer Run commercial lots about a year and a half ago, maybe. It was all part of the golf course, and the golf course was all put in that. However, we always had that commercial zoning along the frontage of Highway 92. So, I guess from our standpoint is we probably should have had a commercial designation on there in the comprehensive plan, but again, zoning always trumps the comprehensive plan in this, obviously, we have more control over inside the city than we do from the last application, but. Yeah, and just go really quick, and Ally, if you go to the next one where you were just going, and this actually shows it a little bit better. So now lot 3, you can see those black lines kind of on the outside there where that green area is parcel F.
Green is parcel F.
Yes.
It's already sold.
Well, this is an image that came from the applicant as part of this process. I think it's under contract right now, so I don't know if it's completely sold.
Optimistic.
I think, yeah, they're in a due diligence.
Got it.
And all the rest of the area is commercial. The pink, the fuchsia, whatever that is.
No, so that black line to the south there, all of that is commercial and up to 92.
Okay, but not southern part below that.
That's all on the golf course, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So staff did indicate concern for the remainder of the thing that would have been split, so that would be this area. It's kind of hard to see since the image is pink with like the laser pointer, but this is that remainder area of the parcel. So it's almost like a flag lot. However, because they are showing a concept for the future to have, internal streets and future commercial development, staff at this time isn't concerned that the remainder of the parcel is this lot. In addition, with how it's laid out, it wouldn't be buildable unless something like this were to come about. So with those reasonings, staff is recommending approval of the request.
Do we have anyone in the audience here to speak on this item? Any questions or comments from commission?
I guess I'm a little bit torn here because of the comment that I made on the last subject. Help me understand, wrap my head around how this is a different situation. I mean, I realize it's 2 different parcels. That one's outside of city limits. This is inside of city limits, but on principle, it's a very similar situation.
You're talking about the comprehensive plan designation. Yeah, and it's just simply that zoning in this situation trumps the comprehensive plan in that sense. Zoning is your regulation. It's your regulatory thing that you have to look at. So the zoning lays out the allowable uses. The comprehensive plan is meant to guide future land use, and it's more of a policy document. So, if we were getting to a point where I'll just use an example here. Let's say we were looking south of here and they wanted to, maybe take some of this. Let me not say this in this particular situation. Let's look at another area. Let's say another area, you have a residential land use and somebody wants to rezone it to commercial. At that point, then they have to go through a comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning. But on this one, again, the zoning's already in place. Zoning controls what can be done with the land. It's how property rights are established, property values are established and all that.
Yeah, and I certainly understand that. I guess I'm trying to build a line in my mind between
The last one.
Yes, and the fact that I'm trying to justify kind of, you know, how we come to current zoning versus future land use and how we can sort of resolve those two things together
Yep.
in something that harmonizes. That's what I'm struggling with.
It almost, and it seems a little strange to me that obviously like parks along the highway corridor does not make sense.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, when the comprehensive plan was laid out, a lot of it was done by current ownership. So again, this wasn't platted.
It was all one.
It was all one giant parcel. And I think at that point, it was just looked at as, oh, here's the golf course and here's the boundaries of the golf course.
That
and here's
actually-
the Park and rec use.
That actually helps me significantly.
Okay.
So that makes sense because other portions of that existing parcel,
Yep.
it made perfect sense to be, because I agree with what Misty said. You would certainly put commercial along a corridor like that. I was trying to wrap my head around why the comprehensive plan would have this as Parks and Rec. That makes a lot of sense. And
So, and maybe just to clarify more, so if there was no commercial zoning in place on this property, they would have to go through a rezoning process. At that point, then we would make them amend the comprehensive plan. So the rezoning request, which has to be approved against that, would match.
okay.
Do you have any other questions or comments? Would someone like to make a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion. I move that the City of Indianola Planning and Zoning Commission recommends that the request be approved as submitted.
Roll call vote, please.
Goldwitch,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Stecker,
Yes.
Harmon,
Yes.
Waterman.
All right, item 7B, consider recommendation on request for approval of a plat of survey for Craig Boldman on behalf of Lee Adams for the property address as 8919 Highway 6569.
So this is a plat of survey request that was submitted by Craig on behalf of Inspection Group LLC. The subject property currently is a single family dwelling and such accessory structures. The plat of survey is a boundary line retracement. So it doesn't split or divide the parcel into new parcels. So no new parcel was being created. So this shows parcel J, so this is that existing parcel and for that retracement was done. It shows the future land use map, which shows the areas being agricultural. This shows the outline of the area through Beacon. Because no new solar being created, staff is recommending approval of this.
Do you have anyone in the audience here to speak on this item? I can just get you to state your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Gene Mercer, 17439 120th Avenue. I'm a member of Inception Group, so we're just trying to get the highway frontage zone to C2 currently. We've been in talk with Charlie, several meetings about future development, annexation from the city on the whole development. So it's commercial along the highway, multifamily on back, and then executive lots on the backside of the nature trail. So it's 278 total acres. So it's quite the project. Currently, we're just trying to get a zone to C2, kind of get cleaned up and do possibly outdoor storage temporarily to help make some revenues that's a purpose. So, and then commission that out, start building commercial lots. It's a long process drawn out here. We have to do traffic studies and a whole lot of stuff here. So it's not a quick turnaround. So and that's it. I can answer any questions.
Just to clarify on all of that, I mean, again, we're looking at a survey that is a retracement of existing lot lines right now. What Gene mentioned, yeah, we've had some initial discussions because how many acres is that total that you guys own now?
77 or 78.
It goes across the trail and everything like that. They've got an overall plan that they're looking at. Obviously annexation, traffic studies, possibly traffic signals on the highway, speed studies along the highway. There's just a lot of things that do need to happen. So we started those discussions internally with the applicant. This is just kind of getting kind of ready for that overall thing, but you're not making any decisions on that tonight. All of that stuff will have to come through the planning and zoning, but you know, again, annexation, subdivision, rezonings, just there's a lot of steps to this one.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion on this item?
Anybody else? So.
Yes, is there anybody else in the audience that wanted to speak on this item? Anybody from the commission?
I'll make a motion that the city of Indianola, oh, she switched the screen. I can't read it now. Planning and Zoning Commission. Recommends the request to be approved as submitted.
Second.
All right. I'll vote.
Herman,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Colbridge.
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Item 7C, consider the request from Brandon Stubbs for a modification to the Summercrest Planned Unit Development, UD.
So this is a modification request to modify staff requirements for the Summercrest planned unit development. Currently, the setbacks within the master plan guides for an 8-foot setback for a total setback of 16 with both sides combined. The applicant is proposing a 6-foot setback for a total of 12 feet when combining both side yard setbacks. So this shows the preliminary plat for this trust planned unit development. This shows the lots that are located along the west and east boundary. This is where that setback requirement would apply towards. So it wouldn't be those exterior lots. With this request, staff doesn't have, we're recommending approval. I do know that the applicants are online on Zoom, so if there are any questions from them, they're here with us.
Do I have anyone in the audience here to speak on this item? Questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah, why do they want to do this?
That they have a wider variety of house plans they can, yeah, I would assume.
So it's gonna squeeze the
To
lots
pack
smaller.
more houses in here.
Same number of houses, different floor plans of houses. So, and the applicant is on it, maybe they can help just clarify that, but from my understanding is we're not creating any additional lots. It's the same number of lots that'll be available on there.
Footage of houses is going to grow, could grow.
Yeah, I don't,
The width, the buildable width of the lot.
I'll have on any of it.
Hello. Can anybody hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
Hi, my name is Anastasia. I'm with D.R. Horton. We are requesting this so then we are able to put a ranch home on these lots versus a 2-story home. So if we keep the setbacks at the current setback, we only can build a 2-story, but if we change it to the 6-foot setback, we'll be able to put a ranch home there. We figured that also the neighbors would like this as well, so then they don't have a 2-story home in their backyard and they can see over the home.
thank you.
So then, I mean, and just an obvious statement, we've already got a number of homes that are built on the west side. So that's not gonna matter there.
Yeah, they meet the current setbacks.
In this, just to clarify too, is this is this first grouping, right? In kind of this,
Only for those specific lots
Yeah.
that this request is being made, is that right?
So when the PUD was originally approved, those lots that were adjacent to the exterior subdivisions, those 2 residential subdivisions, they had one standard of setbacks, and that was that 8-foot setback, 16 on both sides. And the interior lots are actually a 5-foot setback, 10 feet on both
So I am
sides.
reading this correctly.
Yes, yeah, so those are those middle lots in there. Those are their setbacks. And again, now this request is to just shrink down that side setback on those.
Ones
on
in
the
yellow.
exterior. Yeah, on the ones in yellow, yes, yes.
Because it's a smaller standard on the other ones.
Yes.
It was a smaller standard to begin with. These are smaller lots
Yeah.
to begin with.
And the traditional R2 now zoning, then R3 zoning, yes.
Because when the PUD was approved, as you know, I voted against it. I voted against recommending it because I thought it was a backdoor way of shrinking down lots without changing the standards in the city requirements. And now we're talking about doing it again.
Not shrinking the lots though out. The same number of lots.
Yeah, the lots will stay
I
the
didn't
same.
say more lots. You're jamming they're closer
Yeah,
together,
they're close
right?
together.
They're gonna be closer together. Any way you cut it, when you take distances out.
But from our standpoint, again, the PUD, that's why PUDs are put in place, because then it allows you flexibility to look at a piece of ground on a case by case basis and come up with somewhat unique regulations technically to fit that particular piece of ground.
Because as we discussed back then, that the prior zoning would have allowed apartment dwellings, all of those things. This allowed
Less dense than that would have been.
less dense and a different opportunity for something that couldn't have been developed
Yes.
way before because of the width there.
I think particularly because we're not changing the number of lots, we're really just allowing for greater variety. Floor plan.
So how plastic are the requirements for a PUD? What if they wanted to have them 3 feet apart? Is there no limit?
Townhomes are allowed out.
Yeah, I mean, again, the PUD, there's certain standards in which you have to review a PUD under in the end, so, if they wanted to put them 1 foot apart, that might not meet certain standards in a PUD if they were just single family detached structures. And then obviously we've got fire code that we have to look at as well too, when it comes to some of those standards. So, but again, there is a lot of flexibility with the PUD to create unique regulations for a particular development. But commission provides that recommendation, the council is the ultimate authority on it. So if we get to a point where, hey, we don't like this for this reason, and this reason, you don't necessarily have to approve it.
I was just going with that, Al, in the thought of if on a PUD, if they said, we've decided we want to do bi-attached structures. And so there would be no
Zero lot.
right in between it. I mean, that exists in other communities. So otherwise they wouldn't have been able to have that as an option. They're not asking that though.
No.
What are the numbers again that, what's your final distance between properties?
The request on the exterior lots, those ones that were shown in yellow, would be the 6-foot side setback, which would then put it minimum 12 feet between 2 structures. Those interior lots are 5, minimum 10 between 2 structures.
They're still 12 feet, you're not. 10 feet.
Would anybody like to make a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval as submitted.
Second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Harris,
No.
Becker,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes.
Butch,
Yes.
All right, item 8A, current projects.
I don't have any update on current projects right now and give this update quite a bit, but there's, yeah, it's slow time right now and just economy wise and all of that, so.
Item 8B, a brief discussion regarding zoning code review and amendments.
So yes, and on this too, there's two other things I want to cover before I'm done, but guess you might not be aware of this, but roughly about 22 and a half months ago, we adopted new zoning regulations. Internally, we're getting to a point where we have a whole book full of notes that we think some areas just aren't working. We need to make some changes along the way. What I want to do is we're hoping sometime in July, maybe August, that we can come to the commission with these changes and do a full scale, just quick update of some sections that we've made notes on. So I want to push back on you guys a little bit and just say, hey, if you've noticed anything along the way that you say, hey, this particular regulation, we don't think it's working, or I've had some concern with it, please let us know. So as we're going through and keeping our notes, that we can add that in there, anything that you see that needs to be changed. So I don't know if anybody's kept notes along the way or can think of any situations, but just, we don't need to talk about it right here. But if there's anything you want to just email us about, call me about, just wanted to put that out there. Okay, other thing, what's that?
No, yeah, no, not about that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One thing I failed to do last time was inform the commission. Obviously, Josh Rabe is no longer here. Josh Rabe was appointed to council. I failed to, first of all, thank him for his service, and Josh let me know about that. So go ahead and do that this evening. But again, I appreciate Josh's service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Wish him best of luck on council. We're still looking for 3 people to fill spots right now. So again, just push back on you guys if you know of anybody who would be willing to serve.
To you in the audience.
Encourage them to apply for those positions. And then lastly, and Courtney will probably kill me for this, but it is Courtney's birthday. And I did want to wish Courtney a happy birthday. So I don't know how old you are. It's like maybe 30, but
Yeah, well,
around there.
25.
Again, happy birthday, Courtney.
Right, would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I have just one subject. We have a little discussion about the necessity of 2 meetings a month. When it seems like all we've been doing lately is these plat of surveys. And are they really that much of a hurry that they can't wait or get them in and wait a month?
Especially when you noted it's been slower.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Well, and it's been something we've talked about internally too. I know the county is going through some code rewrites right now, and I had to guess maybe some people are just trying to get lots of surveys through before that rewrite happens, and we're getting brought into that. That's my guess. I don't have any evidence to back that up one way or the other. One thing we can do is maybe just internally kind of work and try to keep plat of surveys only on 1 meeting a month. From my standpoint, still, when we do get a bigger site plan in and we're at that point, those extra 2 weeks can save us, the city and a possible developer, a lot of time to get the necessary approvals. Plat of surveys, you're right. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, and maybe we can wait on those, but if it's okay with the commission, if I think that's the general direction we're having, maybe we can just say that, you know, the plat of surveys are only going to be on the first meeting of the month, and we'll get those through. But I also do think that probably is going to slow down here a little bit, because I know the county's put a moratorium on some of their stuff. So
The other thing is, could we bring up that second meeting if necessary, if we have a long, bigger agenda? I mean, do you dare go back to it once a month and bring up the second?
Like as a special meeting?
Well, yeah, if necessary. I mean, if you see it piling up and we don't want to hold anybody back, then, go for it. Could we do a second meeting instead of, and I asked a question also of, the day that we have it on, and trying to coach and be part of, and I want to be part of everything, but missing out on something now and missing out on something later. So
yeah.
No, it does make a difference.
Yeah.
And especially since the flexibility of being able to attend via Zoom, that does.
Right.
Special meeting.
Wise, it doesn't work out right.
So
Yeah.
When we're on the same night and the exact same time, it doesn't work very well.
So 2 things really quick then. We can definitely try to get everything scheduled and we'll kind of stick to that first meeting because that was always the traditional meeting that we had. If we do have something that we are seeing, because when we get to site plan and subdivision review approval, just so the commission knows, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of this. We, the city, have been working with the developer for usually months before that to get changes done, things how to just to get ready for your review. So sometimes we're starting to just you'll have developers who are, hey, we need to start moving dirt on this. We need to get this approved ASAP. And if we make them wait another 2 weeks, that's all the time in the world. So again, I think we can work to just try to focus on that first meeting on everything. And if there is something where we see, yeah, we need this one to come through, maybe have that meeting available at that point.
Sounds great.
Seems very reasonable.
Yes. That works. Now, on the meeting dates, and yeah, Lynn did ask about this. That's something that I think the commission as a whole needs to discuss. If we do want to discuss possibly having meetings on a different date, we would have to work through and just make scheduling wise that it does work in these chambers, because there's a lot of public meetings that do happen in this room. But if that is something we want to look at, we definitely can look at changing the meeting date.
Tuesday good with everybody else, or is there a Wednesday possibility, or just asking?
Tuesday's good with me, but also given we're 3 people short, if I'm willing to be flexible as well, so.
Probably the most flexible of anybody. I'm not gonna get into this discussion.
Except for when it comes to PUDs.
Yeah. We have a problem there.
You go, that's okay. We're always busy, so it doesn't matter.
So I will just throw out a suggestion of a Monday or Wednesday, but if Tuesday's the day that works most, and
Monday would work.
I think Mondays would be hard for me because we have dance. And that will get busier again once the summer comes to an end.
Well, how about this?
I can be flexible.
We can put it on as a discussion item at the next meeting. Sounds like maybe just Monday or Wednesday, but maybe give everybody an opportunity just to kind of think about it and look at your schedule. Let us do some analysis too on availability. I know like Mondays, we have a little bit more of availability in here now because IMU's no longer meeting in this room, so.
That is correct, but we also want to wait for the 3 new commissioners. to
Yep.
help in that.
It's true too, so, yeah. So,
good.
Could always meet the first and third Monday of the month.
yeah, I think on those ones. But anyway, so yeah, let us do that. And Ben brings up a good point. Maybe we should kind of hold off until we get the additional seats filled and then we can bring that forward to everybody and just have that discussion. But from staff standpoint, mostly we're flexible as long as you don't want to do Friday night meetings. That's really all I care about. So yeah.
Friday at 7:30 p.m.
That's where I'll start delegating a little bit more stuff.
All right.
But it keeps them right.
Are you ready to adjourn?
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, great. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
You guys.
Oh, wait, I forgot to say.
Then.